local authorities were notified of human remains located near Lake J.B. Thomas in southwest Scurry County. The remains were sent to the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification for DNA analysis. On April 26, 2013, the Scurry County District Attorney's Office received written confirmation that the remains have been positively identified as those of Hailey Dunn.
A 13-year-old girl vanished right after Christmas. 3 years later, traces were found near J.B. Thomas Lake in Scurry County, revealing that she had lost her life due to severe trauma caused by a hard object. The man who once lived with her mother became the prime suspect, spending 2 years behind bars and now still facing the consequences of a cold case tightening around him. Hailey Darlene Dunn was born on August 28, 1997, in Colorado City, a quiet little town with a population of just under 4,000 people, where everyone knew each other and stories spread quickly from one porch to another. Hailey was described by everyone as cheerful, outgoing, and full of life. She loved sports, sparkly things, and always carried a bright, contagious smile. Hailey was the daughter of Billie Jean Dunn and Clint Dunn, and had an older brother named David Dunn. When Hailey was 7 years old, her parents divorced, and she lived with her mom and brother in a small house on Chestnut Street, just a few steps away from her dad's home. Her mother, Billie Jean Dunn, worked long hours at a hospital to make ends meet, doing her best to provide her kids with a stable home. After the divorce, Billie began dating Sean Adkins, a younger man who worked at a local factory in Snyder, Texas. At first, the relationship seemed normal, but over time it became a source of tension between Billie and those around her. Hailey's brother, David, who was in high school at the time, spent most of his days hanging out with friends. He described his sister as full of energy, someone who loved music, especially Taylor Swift's songs, and would often sing along in her room whenever she had free time. Hailey was also very active, loved taking part in school sports, and dreamed of becoming a basketball coach one day. To everyone in town, she was the very picture of joy and light in their small Texas community. On the morning of December 27, 2010, just one day after Christmas, Hailey's mother, Billie Jean Dunn, was getting ready to leave for her 12-hour shift at the hospital. Before walking out the door, she said goodbye to her daughter, who was still sound asleep in bed. Billie's boyfriend, Sean Adkins, later told investigators that he left the house earlier, around 5:30 a.m., to drive to his job at the Snyder manufacturing plant. However, he claimed he stayed there only a few minutes before quitting, and then drove straight to his mother's house in Big Spring, about 50 miles from Colorado City, where he said he remained for most of the day. But cell phone records later painted a very different picture. That entire morning, Sean's phone pinged off towers in and around Colorado City, not along the route to Big Spring. At 2:30 p.m., a strange text message was sent from Hailey's phone to one of her close friends. The message contained just a single word: widen. And to this day, no one knows what it truly meant. It could have been a typo, a cry for help, or something only Hailey herself understood. Her friend never replied, and after that message, no one ever saw Hailey again. When Billie returned home that evening, she noticed her daughter wasn't there but assumed Hailey was spending time with friends. When she asked Sean, he told her Hailey had walked over to her dad's house and then planned to stay overnight with a friend named Mary Beth. But that wasn't true. Clint Dunn, Hailey's father, who lived just across the street, said he hadn't seen his daughter at all that day.
That was my day, and then I came home around, I guess like 3 o'clock I got there, and Hailey was there watching TV in the living room, and I went into me and Billy's bedroom, and she came in there and told me that she was going to her father's house and that she was staying the night with a friend, and then she left. And then I was there by myself for maybe an hour at the most, and then David and a friend came over, and they went to his room, and they were playing video games and so forth. And Billy called me and told me that that her relief got there and that she's going to get to leave a little early. So I was up there at the hospital in Snyder around 6 o'clock to pick her up, and then we came back. And then we went to bed shortly after that.
And this whole time you were thinking Hailey was at a friend's house?
Yes.
About what time did she say she was leaving at?
What time Hailey was leaving? I guess it was sometime in between 3 and 3:30 when she said she was leaving. It was like shortly after I got there. I'm not real sure about a time.
Does she normally call and check in every so often, or is it normal to not hear from her for so long?
It's pretty normal for her just to not call, because she usually does that though, because she does stay the night at a friend's house. She'll be back the next morning.
When Billy finally called Mary Beth's family to confirm, the answer made her blood run cold. Hailey had never planned to stay at their house and hadn't even mentioned that she was coming over. A wave of dread instantly washed over the worried mother. As she stepped into her daughter's room, what stunned her most was that all of Hailey's personal belongings were still there. Her cell phone, wallet, hairbrush, makeup, and even the favorite bracelet she never took off. Those items made it clear that Hailey had never intended to spend the night away from home. To Billy, it felt as though her daughter had simply vanished into thin air. Panicking, she went door to door, asking neighbors if anyone had seen Hailey walking down the street, even wondering whether someone might have tricked her into leaving. But every answer was the same. No one had seen Hailey that day. As night fell and her faint hope began to fade, Billy finally did what she should have done much earlier. She went to the Colorado City Police Department and filed a missing person report. At first, authorities believed Hailey was just a runaway, but the people of Colorado City refused to stand by and do nothing. Hundreds of residents, neighbors, friends, and even complete strangers banded together, spreading out in every direction to search through empty lots, open fields, and narrow alleys. They handed out flyers, posted missing posters, and called out Hailey's name in desperation. Her father, Clint Dunn, led those searches tirelessly. He walked until his legs gave out, digging through roadside trash bins and chasing down every single lead, no matter how small, even when it ended in a dead end. Meanwhile, the behavior of Billy and her boyfriend, Sean Adkins, began to raise eyebrows. Sean hardly joined any of the searches, didn't hand out flyers, and didn't help volunteers. Instead, he only showed up for interviews, answering questions with a detached and emotionless attitude. Billy, through tears, admitted she couldn't bring herself to walk through the desolate search areas because, in her words, doing that would feel like searching for my own child's remains. Instead, she clung to the fragile hope that one day, Hailey would walk back through the door as if nothing had ever happened. But with each passing day, that haunting silence only deepened everyone's fear that they were facing a tragedy far greater than they ever imagined. Just 4 days after Hailey vanished, while the entire community was still searching day and night, Billy and Sean held a New Year's Eve party at their house, a decision that left many people, especially Hailey's father, Clint Dunn, furious and deeply confused. While Clint was out on the cold dirt roads, exhausted, hanging up flyers and praying for his daughter's safe return. The home across the street, the very house where Hailey had lived, was filled with music and laughter. To him, It felt like a painful disrespect to the anguish their family was enduring. Yet it was after that incident that the investigation began to take a turn. On January 4th, 2011, the Texas Rangers, along with the Federal Bureau of Investigation, FBI, officially joined the case, bringing to Colorado City a level of resources the town had never seen before. Professional search teams were deployed, along with K-9 units, helicopters, and ground crews. Hailey's bright, smiling face appeared everywhere, on highways across Texas, on billboards, road signs, and digital screens, all bearing a desperate plea for the public's help. Local and national media covered the story relentlessly, turning the disappearance of Hailey Dunn from a small-town mystery in West Texas into one of the most widely followed cases in the country.
Dunn was extensive. Of course, the Texas Rangers started with Hailey's home, the home she shared with her mother, Billy Dunn, and the live-in boyfriend, Sean Atkins. The intensive search did not end.
That interview was so direct it left viewers holding their breath. It quickly spread across the United States, not just because of Billie Jean Dunn's awkward and at times emotionless demeanor, but also due to the sharp, relentless questioning of journalist Nancy Grace. During the show, Nancy didn't hesitate to press Billy about the timeline, her conflicting statements, and especially about Sean Atkins, whose name was now being mentioned frequently as a person of interest in the case. Billy's calm, almost detached answers only fueled public suspicion. Shortly afterward, Sean Atkins gave his own interview, attempting to defend himself against the mounting accusations. He said the allegations had deeply hurt him and insisted that he loved Hailey as if she were his own child, claiming he would never do anything to harm her. Yet instead of easing public concern, his words had the opposite effect. His tone lacked emotion, his answers were evasive and inconsistent, and many noticed how he carefully avoided questions about the morning Hailey disappeared.
Hailey's case was on national television, and Nancy Grace seemed to be a little hard on you. What was that like, hearing her question Billy like that?
I heard about it. I wasn't there when Billy was getting interviewed by her. I was talking to the Texas Rangers, but I heard about it, and it's frustrating, what she said about me, but it really doesn't bother me because, my main focus is just Hailey. We just want her to come home safe.
Does it hurt to think people would point fingers at you, the person who cares about her?
Yeah, it hurts. It does.
Describe to me the relationship between you and Hailey.
It's a really good relationship, and I love her with all my heart, and I believe she loves me with all her heart, and we get along just fine.
See, is there anything else you want people to know about you and your relationship with the family at all? Because it seems like a lot of people are buzzing on the internet about it.
Yeah, as far as me, Hailey, and Billy and David, we all get along just fine. And I would never do nothing to that little girl. I love her with all my heart, and I just wish for her safe return.
While the rest of the nation was caught up in talk shows and televised debates about the case, out on the dusty streets of Colorado City, Hailey's father, Clint Dunn, never stopped searching for his daughter. Every day, he walked for hours, knocking on doors, posting flyers, and pleading with anyone who would listen to help him. He called media outlets, reached out to private investigators, and even contacted independent detectives, all driven by one single purpose: to make sure Hailey's case would never be forgotten. In his heart, pain mixed with suspicion, a strong, unshakable feeling that Billy and Sean were hiding something they didn't want to reveal. Inside the small house on Chestnut Street, the atmosphere had grown tense and heavy. The constant pressure from the media along with the rumors swirling around town, had begun to fracture Billy and Sean's relationship. What once seemed like a home now felt like a ticking time bomb ready to explode. Police records later revealed that months before Hailey's disappearance, Billy and Sean had a serious argument. In a call to law enforcement, both accused each other of making threats, and responding officers described them as an unstable, impulsive couple prone to frequent conflicts.
I really need to file a report on somebody.
What exactly happened?
I broke up with this guy a couple of days ago, and he's telling me that he's going to kill me and that it's going to be remembered for a long time.
I got a situation on my hands. I have an ex-girlfriend. She's taking a whole bunch of anxiety pills that I take. So I guess she got them from me, and she said she took a bunch of her pain pills too. And she's saying that she wants to die, so she filed a report on me, for threats and stuff like that. So she's just upset about it. She's just, not being herself right now. Threatening to kill her.
Damn it.
It's Hailey Dunn.
Oh, God. He's been going all day. All right, I'll go up there.
For the neighbors living along Chestnut Street, the tension inside Billie Jean Dunn's house was nothing new. They had grown used to hearing shouting coming from within, heated arguments that sometimes went on late into the night, and more than once, they had seen Billy and Sean quarreling out in the front yard. Some admitted that the atmosphere in that home felt chaotic, a place where love was constantly overshadowed by suspicion, conflict, and unease. But what truly sent chills through everyone came from Hailey herself.
Things that Hailey used to tell me about the man.
What kind of things?
She didn't like him. She didn't trust him. She was afraid of him.
I don't want to be here right now. I'm going to be here with you because I don't feel right with my stepdad.
From the very beginning of the investigation, both Billie Jean Dunn and Sean Adkins were asked to give detailed statements about their schedules and whereabouts on the day Hailey disappeared. Detectives carefully cross-checked everything, from bank records and cell phone data to timesheets and work schedules, and within just a few days, inconsistencies in Sean's story began to emerge. According to his account, on the morning of December 27, 2010, he went to work at the Snyder manufacturing plant, where he was employed, but was fired that very morning. Sean claimed he arrived at the plant around 6 a.m., clocked in, bought a drink, was told he was being let go, returned his uniform, and left just a few minutes later. To investigators, that small detail became a critical clue. It could help them pinpoint Sean's exact movements on the morning Hailey disappeared. However, when they verified his account with the plant supervisor, Sean's entire story quickly fell apart. The supervisor confirmed that Sean had not been fired as he claimed. Instead, he had quit on his own. According to reports, Sean arrived at the plant around 6 a.m., clocked in, turned in his uniform, and left just a few minutes later without giving any clear explanation. The discrepancy between those two versions immediately caught detectives' attention. It showed that Sean had deliberately lied during the earliest days of the investigation, a classic sign of someone concealing actions or crucial information. When confronted, Sean admitted he made up the firing story to avoid conflict with Billie Jean Dunn, saying he didn't want her to know he had quit his steady job. But for investigators, that excuse didn't add up. They considered it the first red flag in a growing list of inconsistencies. Not only had Sean's story been twisted, but digital data from his cell phone was now beginning to tell an entirely different story. Sean claimed that after leaving the plant, he drove straight to his mother's house in Big Spring, about 50 miles from Colorado City, saying he wanted to use her computer to apply for unemployment benefits. However, investigators quickly discovered that the digital data from his cell phone told a completely different story. Between 6:35 and 6:56 that morning, Sean's phone was still pinging off towers within the Colorado City area, the very town where Hailey lived, instead of along the route toward Big Spring as he had stated. That meant that at the time Hailey was last seen, Sean was still very close to her home. It wasn't until several hours later, between 9:38 a.m. and 2:40 p.m., that his phone records finally showed signals coming from Big Spring. That nearly 3-hour gap became a major question mark in the case. An unexplained window of time with no witnesses and no clear account of where Sean had been. When pressed, he continued to insist that he had left town immediately after quitting his job. But the digital evidence told a very different story. To investigators, it was a troubling sign. Sean Adkins might have stayed in Colorado City far longer than he wanted anyone to believe. And that mysterious window of time could hold the key to what really happened to Hailey Dunn on that morning. That afternoon, around 4 o'clock, Hailey's brother, David Dunn, came home after hanging out with friends. The front door was locked, so he climbed through a window to get in. As soon as he stepped into the living room, David froze. Sean Adkins was standing in the hallway, his face tense and his eyes wide with panic, like he'd just been caught doing something he shouldn't. David later said that the look on Sean's face gave him chills, as if Sean was hiding something. Around that same time, one of Hailey's uncles remembered a strange conversation he had with Sean a few days later, when he asked how anyone could hurt an innocent child like Hailey. Sean answered in a cold tone, avoiding eye contact. That response only made the family's suspicions grow stronger. Later that evening, bank records revealed more inconsistencies. After Sean picked up Billie Jean Dunn from her hospital shift around 6 p.m., the two made 2 back-to-back ATM withdrawals totaling $140. Billie explained that the cash was for groceries and gas, but investigators later found that most of the money was spent on illegal substances, raising serious concerns that drug use might have been happening inside the home where Hailey lived, even with children present. When both were asked to take polygraph tests, things only got more complicated. Billie failed hers, later saying her anxiety medication might have affected the results. Sean, on the other hand, walked out twice before finishing the test, and on the third try, he only answered 2 questions. When asked where Hailey was, he said, "Scurry County." When asked who the police should be looking for, he said, "Both of us." Investigators concluded that both answers appeared to be truthful, but Sean refused to explain further and abruptly left the interrogation room. As the investigation expanded, detectives began taking a closer look inside the home of Billie Jean Dunn and Sean Adkins, and what they found left everyone deeply unsettled. In both the bedroom and the living room, police discovered several stacks of neatly organized printed materials. But these weren't just random news articles. They were hundreds of pages centered around disturbing topics, tragic criminal cases, profiles of infamous offenders, and detailed accounts of violent acts and morally twisted stories. Everything had been printed, highlighted, and carefully kept, almost like a curated collection. To investigators, this was far from a casual interest in crime news. It pointed to a dark and deeply troubling fascination. When confronted with the discovery, Billie appeared calm and claimed that she and Sean were simply fans of true crime stories, just like many others. But for the seasoned detectives on the case, that explanation didn't sit right. The scope and content of the material they'd gathered went well beyond normal curiosity. It suggested an obsession that might have hinted at something far darker lurking beneath their seemingly ordinary lives. By January 12, 2011, less than 2 weeks after Hailey was reported missing, law enforcement officially announced that Sean Adkins was a person of interest in the case, meaning someone who might possess critical information related to the girl's disappearance. For many residents of Colorado City, the news came as no surprise. Sean's name had already been circulating in conversations for days. Still, he firmly denied any involvement, insisting he had nothing to hide and saying the accusations hurt him deeply because he loved Hailey like his own daughter. Yet while Sean tried to maintain a calm front, what was happening inside the Chestnut Street home grew increasingly troubling. On February 24, 2011, Child Protective Services, CPS, officially intervened and removed Hailey's brother, David Dunn, from his mother's custody. This was neither an easy nor a random decision. According to reports, it came after investigators expressed serious concern about the boy's living environment, particularly the continued presence of Sean Adkins in the home and his increasingly erratic behavior noted during the investigation. For a family already shattered by the mysterious disappearance of their daughter, having their only remaining child placed under state protection underscored just how severe the red flags had become. CPS typically steps in only when they believe a child's safety is at direct risk, and in this case, authorities determined that the potential dangers posed by both Billie Jean Dunn and Sean Adkins had gone far beyond acceptable limits. What investigators uncovered next would become one of the most disturbing and shocking discoveries in the entire Hailey Dunn case. During a digital forensic examination of electronic devices seized from both Billie Jean Dunn's home and Sean Adkins's mother's house, law enforcement found more than 100,000 illegal images and files involving minors, material that experts classified as child exploitation content. The sheer number of files went far beyond what could ever be considered accidental or random downloads. It revealed a highly organized and deliberate archive spread across multiple devices. Some of the material was found on a memory card hidden inside Billie's home. Others were recovered from a computer at Sean's mother's residence, and investigators determined that a specific laptop served as the central hub for storing the entire collection. However, just when investigators believed they were on the verge of a major breakthrough, a series of unexpected events made the case more tangled than ever. Not long after police seized the laptop, considered the central device containing the illegal material, Sean Adkins's stepfather suddenly showed up at the police station, demanding that the computer be returned. In a move that shocked the entire community, authorities ultimately agreed and handed the laptop back to Sean, even though it was regarded as a piece of highly critical potential evidence. Years later, that decision is still remembered as one of the most serious missteps in the investigation. Returning the device may have erased or destroyed vital data, information that could have revealed what really happened to Hailey Dunn. Why was such a crucial piece of evidence given back to someone labeled a person of interest? That question continues to haunt the Dunn family and anyone who has followed the case. Although investigators presented all of the recovered data to a grand jury, no arrests were made at the time. Prosecutors argued that too many people in the family, including Billie Jean Dunn, Sean Adkins, and several relatives, had access to the devices, making it impossible to determine with absolute certainty who was directly responsible for possessing the illegal material. But to the people of Colorado City, that explanation felt hollow. While the investigation was still ongoing, Billie Jean Dunn's actions increasingly fueled suspicion among both investigators and the community. Instead of fully cooperating, Billie was repeatedly caught lying about Sean Adkins's whereabouts and even withholding information when police tried to locate him. Despite being urged time and again to cut ties with Sean, the main person of interest in her daughter's disappearance, she chose to stand by him no matter what. That blind loyalty eventually came at a cost. In March 2011, Billy was arrested, not for direct involvement in Hailey's disappearance, but for lying to law enforcement and deliberately obstructing the investigation during a period when every minute could have made a difference in finding her daughter. The idea that a mother searching for her missing child would lie to the authorities stunned the entire Colorado City community. What made things even harder to understand was what she did next. In June of that same year, after receiving a suspended sentence, Billy moved to Travis County to live with Sean Adkins, the very man most suspected in the case, and continued their relationship as if nothing had happened. They stayed together until 2012, while on the other side, Hailey's family was still desperately holding on to hope. In March 2013, after nearly 2.5 years of silence and despair, a faint but heartbreaking glimmer of light finally appeared. A hiker passing through an area near Lake J.B, Thomas in Scurry County noticed something unusual among the dry brush and cracked soil. When he moved closer, he realized it was human remains, scattered and severely weathered over time. The area was immediately sealed off, and investigative teams along with forensic experts were called to the scene. What they found left everyone speechless. The location of the remains was only about 60 feet from where Hailey had last been seen. For days, search teams worked with extreme care, collecting every small piece of evidence left behind. Because the remains had been exposed to harsh weather for such a long period, identification was extremely difficult. Bone samples were sent to the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification for DNA testing. Weeks passed in anxious anticipation and fragile hope until the results finally came back. On April 26, 2013, authorities officially announced the news everyone had feared. The remains found near Lake J.B. Thomas belonged to 13-year-old Hailey Darlene Dunn, the little girl who had vanished at the end of 2010.
2013, local authorities were notified of human remains located near Lake J.B. Thomas in southwest Scurry County. The remains were sent to the University of North Texas Center for Human Identification for DNA analysis. On April 26, 2013, the Scurry County District Attorney's Office received written confirmation that the remains have been positively identified as those of Hailey Dunn.
For the Dunn family, the news struck like a bolt of lightning on a clear day. Every fragile hope that Hailey might still be alive was gone in an instant. Police privately informed Clint Dunn that his daughter had likely passed away from severe blunt force trauma, but for reasons never fully explained, the exact cause of her passing was never released to the public. Authorities said certain details needed to remain confidential to protect the ongoing investigation. But that silence only deepened the pain and left even more unanswered questions. The mystery of where Hailey was had finally ended. But the mystery of what truly happened to her grew even darker. From 2013 to 2017, the case seemed to fade into silence. There were no arrests, no new suspects, no official updates, only quiet memorials and the enduring grief of a father who refused to give up. Every day, Clint still walked down the street where Hailey used to play, passing by the room that had remained exactly as she left it. He couldn't close that chapter of his life, because to him, justice had not yet been served. It wasn't until 4 years later, in 2017, that the family was finally able to lay Hailey Darlene Dunn to rest in a small, private, tearful ceremony. Yet even as her little grave was covered with flowers, the case remained unresolved. But unlike many who might have given up after nearly a decade of waiting and heartbreak, Clint Dunn never stopped. He turned his pain into purpose and his loss into a mission. Every year, he organized candlelight vigils in Hailey's memory, speaking her name aloud before the community to make sure her story would never fade away. On social media, Clint became the most determined voice for the case, sharing every update, urging the public to keep paying attention, and pushing authorities to keep working. He reached out to journalists, missing persons organizations, and even strangers willing to help. His grief never faded, but it transformed into perseverance, a quiet, burning fire that never went out. Then, after years without progress, an unexpected breakthrough came in 2019. One of Clint's posts online happened to reach someone no one ever expected, a former high school student who had been just a kid back in 2011 when Hailey disappeared. The person recalled that, in the months following the disappearance, they had come across a few strange items in the area near where Hailey was last seen. Some personal belongings, possibly clothes, a pair of shoes, or other familiar items they hadn't realized were significant at the time. But now, reading Clint's post all these years later, they suddenly understood. Those things might have belonged to Hailey Dunn. Just as a faint glimmer of hope began to reappear, a darker side of the case slowly came to light. A series of revelations that sent chills through the entire West Texas community. Several women in the area came forward, claiming they had been harassed online by a man using the name Casey, coincidentally, Sean Adkins's middle name. The messages they received were anything but harmless. They were explicit, threatening, and in many cases revealed a disturbing obsession with young women. These women didn't know each other, yet they all described the same pattern of behavior: persistent, controlling, and menacing. Private investigator Erica Morse, who had been working alongside the Dunn family for years, decided to dig deeper. She traced digital footprints, gathered data from multiple accounts, compared IP addresses, and eventually found a disturbing connection. Every trail led back to Sean Adkins. To Erica, this was no coincidence. It confirmed that the man had a dangerous dark side, someone manipulative, controlling, and prone to violent tendencies. But when she brought all the evidence to law enforcement, the response was disappointingly dismissive. Instead of expanding the investigation, some officials questioned the credibility of the reports and even accused the victims and Erica of fabricating the story. For her, it was a devastating blow, another moment where the justice system seemed to turn its back on victims. The red flags were flying high, yet instead of taking action, those in power chose silence. And that silence only deepened the tragedy of the Hailey Dunn case, showing that not only had a young girl been abandoned, but so too were the voices crying out for justice afterward. By 2021, after more than a decade of waiting, new momentum finally began to build. The whispers that had lingered for years about Sean Adkins, the inconsistencies in his statements, the unexplained gaps in his timeline, and the disturbing online behavior under the name Casey, all began to converge into a picture clearer than ever before. That spring, behind closed doors, a series of tense meetings took place between the Texas Rangers, the Mitchell County District Attorney's Office, and investigators who had previously worked the case. They made a crucial decision: to re-examine every detail of the Hailey Dunn file with full seriousness and fresh perspective. Private investigator Erica Morse, who had stood by Clint Dunn for years since Hailey's remains were found, presented all the evidence she had painstakingly gathered. The accounts of women harassed online by Casey, the digital data that contradicted Sean's statements, and the troubling behavioral patterns that had never been thoroughly investigated. This time, law enforcement didn't stay silent. They chose to act. And the long-awaited turning point finally came in June 2021. On June 14th, in the small town of Big Spring, Texas, Sean Adkins was arrested and charged in connection with the passing of 13-year-old Hailey Dunn, the little girl the entire state of Texas had never forgotten. The news spread like wildfire across newscasts and social media. After nearly 10 years of suspicion, the man who had once been Hailey's mother's boyfriend was now handcuffed and led away in front of cameras. The sight left the Colorado City community speechless, Sean being escorted by officers, his face expressionless, his eyes empty. He was booked into the Mitchell County Jail, with bond set at $2 million. For Clint Dunn, it was a moment both bittersweet and painful. On one hand, the man he believed responsible for his daughter's tragedy was finally in custody. On the other, he knew all too well that an arrest alone did not yet mean justice. Inside the Mitchell County courtroom, Sean Adkins maintained an eerie, unsettling silence. He entered no plea and offered no explanation. When asked whether he wished to attend his arraignment hearing, Sean refused, allowing the slow legal process to move forward through procedural hearings and lengthy delays. Outside those cold courthouse walls, Clint Dunn stood among a crowd of reporters, his eyes filled with tears, but his voice steady. "There are no words to describe how I feel right now," he said. "We're going to let Hailey, the child herself, speak the truth." After years of being ignored, his voice finally carried the weight of vindication. Clint took a moment to thank the Colorado City community, the investigators, and every volunteer who had stood by him through the darkest, most hopeless days. To him, the sight of Sean finally being brought before the court wasn't just a step forward in the case. It was recognition of a nearly decade-long fight for justice. Yet even amid that moment of relief, a heavy cloud still hung overhead. Prosecutors quietly admitted that they still lacked direct forensic evidence linking Sean Adkins to Hailey Dunn's tragedy. They had numerous circumstantial elements, contradictory statements, suspicious behavior, and irregular digital traces. But the single piece of definitive proof needed to convince a jury beyond a reasonable doubt had yet to surface. 2 years later, in June 2023, the Hailey Dunn case once again fell into darkness when the state of Texas officially filed a motion to dismiss all charges against Sean Adkins without prejudice, meaning the case could be reopened in the future if stronger evidence emerged. District Attorney Ricky Thompson, who had authorized Sean's arrest 2 years earlier, explained that investigators needed more time to strengthen the case file, as the current evidence was still not solid enough to guarantee a fair and conclusive trial. And so, after 2 years behind bars in the Mitchell County Jail, Sean Adkins was released. For Clint Dunn, it was another crushing blow hope reignited, only to be extinguished once again. To him, the moment Sean walked out from behind those bars was not just a disappointment, but a bitter reminder that even when a suspect is arrested, even when his daughter's name appears on every national headline, justice can still slip through his fingers. Yet instead of stepping back, Clint chose to move forward. His pain had now become fuel for his determination. He spoke out louder than ever. publicly accusing both Sean Adkins and Billie Jean Dunn of being involved in the tragedy that took his daughter's life. "They're both involved," Clint declared in multiple interviews. "To me, that's no longer up for debate." As for Billie Jean Dunn, she cut all ties with Sean Adkins after their relationship fell apart in 2012. Their breakup wasn't caused by a single incident, but rather the accumulation of years of suspicion, tension, and dark secrets coming to light. After failing multiple polygraph tests and following the discovery of disturbing evidence inside their home, including printed materials about tragic criminal cases, detailed writings about the twisted behavior of notorious offenders, and, most alarmingly, the illegal files involving minors found on electronic devices, everything between them completely unraveled. Although there was never enough direct evidence to bring formal criminal charges, those revelations cast a long, cold shadow over both of their lives, making them the center of suspicion for years to come. In interviews after Sean's arrest in 2021, Billie stated that she wasn't surprised, even saying she thanked God that someone was finally being held accountable for Hailey's tragedy. Still, Billie Jean Dunn was never formally named as a suspect, and investigators continued to focus their attention entirely on Sean Adkins, the man they believed still held the key to uncovering the full truth behind the case that had haunted the state of Texas for more than a decade. By early 2025, the Hailey Dunn case was officially handed over to the Cold Case Unit of the Texas Rangers, a specialized team dedicated to unresolved investigations that had remained unsolved for years. Armed with advanced forensic technology, cutting-edge data analysis tools, and a renewed determination to review every detail from the very beginning, the new investigators carried with them the hope that modern eyes might finally see what had once been missed. Experts began re-examining every piece of evidence, from physical items and DNA traces to cell phone data and old witness statements, all now analyzed through technologies that didn't exist back in 2010. At the same time, Texas Crime Stoppers renewed its $3,000 reward for any information leading to a conviction in the case, hoping to awaken memories and consciences that might still hold critical clues. For the people of Colorado City, the news stirred mixed emotions. On one hand, there was renewed hope that after so many long years, justice might finally be served for Hailey. But on the other, they couldn't forget the disappointment that had repeated time and time again. The arrests, the sensational headlines, the promises of progress that eventually faded into silence. Now, looking back on more than 14 years, the Hailey Dunn case stands not only as the story of a young girl whose future was stolen, but also as a painful reflection of the gaps within the justice system, where truth has remained buried beneath contradictions, overlooked evidence, and a grief that has never truly found closure. The heartbreaking story of Hailey Darlene Dunn is not just a case that shook the entire state of Texas and the nation. It is also a powerful reminder of love, perseverance, and faith in justice, from years of silence to the tireless efforts of her father, Clint Dunn, and those who refuse to give up. We learn that no matter how much time passes, the truth always finds its way to the surface. Every case is more than facts or numbers. It's a life, a smile, and a future stolen far too soon. Thank you for staying with me until the end of today's episode of True Crime Documentary. As we listened and remembered Hailey, the young girl whose memory continues to live on in the hearts of so many. If this story moved you, please share the video, leave a comment in remembrance of Hailey, and join us in sending prayers to her family. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you won't miss the upcoming real-life stories we'll be sharing in True Crime Documentary. See you in the next episode, where together we continue to search for the truth behind the tragedies time tried to bury.